Hi everyone, welcome to our Claris FileMaker training course on how to build a custom CRM in 30 days. This training is designed primarily for beginners or those of you who need kind of a refresher with the Claris FileMaker platform. Over the course of 30 days, we're going to spend about an hour each day covering topics from the very basics of the Claris FileMaker platform in terms of the tools, the products, deployment, security, all those things you need to know about as you build a custom application. So keep in mind that towards the beginning of the training, the topics are more basic in nature. And as we get towards the end of the training, they're somewhat more advanced. I would say probably intermediate level topics. Now keep in mind this special part of this training is that while we're not only talking about the FileMaker platform, we're talking how you can rapidly customize an existing free CRM that you can download today. It's unlocked. So taking that CRM and customizing it to your organization's particular needs. Now, a couple important links to keep in mind. One is that if you need a copy of FM Starting Point, the free unlocked CRM, visit fmstartingpoint.com and press the button. And then our system will shoot you an email with the current links to that CRM. If you're looking for additional FileMaker training, visit fmtraining.tv and press the bundles button, and that will allow you to get more of this highly animated and somewhat energetic training material to help you through the learning process with the Claris FileMaker platform. Lastly, if you have questions about the FileMaker platform or you're looking for some additional help, maybe some one-on-one coaching help, feel free to email us at support@rcconsulting.com. Today is another awesome day in our 30-day live stream session every day at 1 o'clock Pacific time where I'm at. We are covering 30 days of basic FileMaker training for beginning developers, maybe intermediate developers who've missed some material, and people who maybe did FileMaker years ago, but they are interested, they want to see what's changed, come back, maybe get up to date a little bit. And so that's what we're doing here at fmtrain.tv. Anyway, let's dive into today. So today's topic is, what is today's topic, Christian Olson? What are we doing today?
Today's topic is on print layouts, or printing specifically from FileMaker, something that virtually everybody's going to do in one fashion or another as they start to build their own databases. And so we kind of want to talk about some do's and some don'ts and kind of the basic operation of how it works.
Let me just say a couple things up front. So while we are talking about printing, everyone's like, well, I don't kill trees anymore. I'm progressively forward. We only do PDFs. When we talk about printing paper, the things that we're talking about are equally applicable, both the paper print jobs as well as printing PDFs or saving as PDF. You'll hear the word print PDF or save as PDF in our lexicon. Those mean the same thing. You're creating a PDF document, an Adobe Acrobat document from a layout. While technology's moved on, we print probably less to some degree. There's definitely the need to have reports still created and saved for your boss or manager, or whoever. So Christian, you want to talk us through printing? What is printing? What's it all about?
Absolutely. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump over here, and we're gonna use the word printing, and this is later on in the presentation today, but it's worth noting up front that word is really interchangeable with saving as a PDF. And to go a step further, one of the things that almost everybody wants to do nowadays is send an email to somebody. And so you want to send them your invoices, your estimates, your purchase orders, your proposal, your schedule, whatever that might be. The thing that you send them via email is going to be the same thing that we're talking about today. In fact, if we have time, one of the things I'll mention later on in the stream is when I make a print script, I almost always at the exact same time I'm making a save as or view as PDF and an email script, depending what's going on, because you have to do all of the same steps with most of those. In fact, even some of the straight up printing ones now, depending on what you need to do, you might actually save it as a PDF first, because there's a number of things you can do with the PDF. So those of you out there going, well, who's actually printing paper reports? This still applies to you just as equally as everyone else. One note on that, and again, we'll get into this later, if you are physically printing things, it is really important. We'll talk about the different modes in which you can view things in FileMaker, but it's actually really important that you physically print it, because there's always a little bit of a difference between what you see on the computer screen and what comes out of the printer. But the first thing I think we really want to talk about is, why are there two different screens? And so this is really much geared towards our new people. So many of our regular stream people are already kind of voicing themselves out loud and kind of yelling. They know the answer to this. But I want to talk to those people who are new to FileMaker, because I've seen this again and again and again with my own coaching customers. They start a database, and so they have their main layout that almost everything comes out of. And then at one point they realize, I need to print this. I need to email this. I need to preview it. And so they ask, how do I make a button that does that? And they try to just print that screen that they're working with.
Create a new file for people. So this, when we talk about, so this is starting point. What you see on screen is free. If you go to fmstartingpoint.com, you download a free one. Yeah. But people start with a blank file. They create some stuff. It doesn't particularly matter there. That's all you need. And just go to the layout, right? So they end up on a layout, and they build this thing and they say, hey, I want to print it. If you go to browse mode you go to browse and go file to print, right? We're talking about nothing more than this, right? You're going to see a number of options. We should cover those briefly, but these are the same options that you're going to run into with a PDF. And that is the idea that you can, if you see, you can select the printer at the top, and these are essentially items. But then you come down to the FileMaker specific items, which are you're printing the record you're browsing, you're printing the found set, or you're printing a blank. Essentially, people build the layout like you see here. They make it what it is, and then they print it, and they realize that as they go along, the way it looks on screen is different than the way it looks on paper. And that's where Christian was going. But I wanted to kind of frame it because a lot of times we're starting with FM starting point and people are overwhelmed. When you start with FileMaker from the beginning, it looks like this. There's nothing here, right? This is FileMaker, the basics of it.
And just to actually illustrate this, and I'm glad that we made a new file here. So let's break this down. When we say there's two screens, the one screen is the one that is being printed or displayed or showed to someone in the form of like a report. The other screen that we haven't really named is the data entry screen. This is where someone goes on their iPad, their computer, and they need to enter information in. And depending on what that device is, you want to design the screen appropriately. iPads need bigger space than the computer does. But if you imagine over here, I need to enter some information about this record, this student, this job, whatever it might be. And so we're going to go and put my name, and we're going to put these in engineer. And for the people who say, well, let's just go ahead and print this, let's just make this layout a little bit smaller for a moment. Let's pretend they want to make it actually fit on a print screen. And I just want to put side by side a very clear description or example of why you don't want to do the same things. Okay, so we've got this. For browse mode for our data entry screen, this is actually great. It's really, really easy. I know I'm moving faster, but just so we can see this stuff. It's really easy for me to click into these fields and do something. But then when I go to print it, so I'm going to come up here, I'm going to go to File, Print, which I don't often use, and I'm just going to preview this. And okay, that you might say, well, that doesn't look too bad, but that might be in font size 13 or 14. And if you think back, most of the reports, most of the invoices you get from companies are not actually in this size. Let's go back over here. And we're not going to get into merge fields necessarily today, but I'm going to print this just slightly different, okay?
Well, and then also, if you want to put a couple buttons on there too, because
yeah, I'll do that.
Highlights the issue real fast.
That's a very good point. And there's ways to hide those. We're going to ignore that for now. Do something. Okay, we'll put this down here. This is our email button. Where's the stamp? You know what? It's just going to be a PDF. We're going to do real large icon. There we go. So you start putting stuff on here, as Richard is saying. And let's come over here and let's make these. Look at that, font size 16. So you guys might not see this through the stream, but I can guarantee you if you go to your local shop, they're not printing you a receipt in font size 16. Let's bump this down to like a 12, which is going to be hard to see in the stream, but it's more appropriate to what something would actually look like that prints. So here's our person's brand new CRM. It has a button that does something. It has this other button that's going to maybe make the PDF that we're looking at. And let's go look at that if we were to print it. And you can see, I mean, this is still only, sometimes we go even lower than a font size.
Yeah, but it's not just that. The buttons are there. You have all sorts of charts, buttons, things that are going to be on the printout that you don't want on the printout. You want them on screen. You don't want them on the printout.
And how you enter information might look and be ordered in quite a different way than you want to present or show people information. So by separating those two things out from each other, you can make sure that your printed, as we call it, documents are as professional and beautiful as possible. A lot of my clients will spare no expense, if you will. That is, we invest a lot on printed documents because it's like a business card. It's a representation of your company. You'll notice in all the stuff from RCC that Richard is behind, from our website to the newsletters, a lot of detail goes into that. And I can tell you, it looks a lot different than the behind the scene database where we go to enter the information to put those things in. Because if you try to have users enter things in a print fashion, small font and whatnot, it's very difficult for them and might not be organized in a fashion that makes sense. And additionally, like Richard was saying, you're going to have buttons and different things, probably colors. A mistake that I made early on is don't have the entire background be a certain color. If you are actually printing those things, you're going to kill a printer's ink pretty quick. So I think that we've expressed why it is that you want to separate these things into two different layouts.
Let's show them how we solve this in the starting point. Actually, just show them the two layouts. We have a layout here. We have a lot of buttons on it, right? Everyone, you see this, right? And so we understand that someone wants to print it, right? Somehow they want to print it. So if we're going to print it, you know, we don't need all the blue buttons and everything else. So if you want to go to pop the layout and show them the layouts, we have two layouts. And so these look very, very different. Very, very different, but they come from the same table occurrence, right? They come from, it's the same data.
So you exactly what you're saying in terms of displaying the information in a different way. Over here, and this is one of our more complicated invoices. So I was actually looking for the simple one. I'm going to open that one up. I think it'll be easier. So over here, we start off with project, account, contact. And over here, you can see we start off with billing information, the client that's on there. We've got our logo, which doesn't make sense to be over here. And if you look at this, I'm going to put this in something called preview mode that we're going to talk about. This is, I mean, obviously we want to build it that way, but this is what this would look like if I printed. And this over here looks a whole lot nicer and is cleaner and easier to read. And so they really perform two totally different functions. And so it's really valuable to you as a business not to send people something that is a user entry screen. And in one of the other things too, let's just take a look at like font size. This is one to me that always kind of jumps out. 13, that's a good one, as Nick would tell you if you're working on the mouse. Now let's go over here and let's just take a quick look and see what these are at. My guess is it's not 13.
Yeah, like
font
9.
Size 9, yeah. You click down here. You really don't need large font size on print layouts. So how you display the information is entirely different. The other thing that's actually really important is, and I'll show you this, I think we have one here called notes. And you'll notice that one of these says notes for printed record, notes for internal use. If you think about it, when you're doing data entry, there might be something that you want to record or notate related to that record that you don't necessarily want it printed. For example, this person has been quite difficult. I cannot spell today. Please make sure we hand them the package. So the point being, you don't really want to print the thing on here that says, hey, this guy's been really difficult.
You know, you don't want Ruben or David, who are on Discord, some of you are on Zoom. Yeah, yeah, that's the message they really see, right? David Chang says, hello, I use different screens for printing invoices because I print over the invoice form. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good topic. We can bring that in here as well.
What was that? I don't know if I quite followed.
If you have a pre-printed form. Yeah, why don't you keep going? I'll go get a demo ready for that real quick. Go keep working on your stuff, Christian, if you want to walk them through the PDF and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of things that we're going to show here now that we're kind of diving into what is a print layout. I'm just going to make our detail view smaller. We'll come back to it when we need to. Let's use invoices as the example for today because invoices are an easy one that makes sense as to why you would need to print it. Invoices also presents us with a situation that you're all going to run into over and over and over again. So we're actually going to, I lied, we're going to jump back to detail view for a moment. And when you make an invoice, you have basic information in it, but you also have related records. That is, you need to sell things on the invoice. In this case, we have an angular clamp. Over here, you guys might have saw me making this before the stream. We've got item 1 through 20. And so when you have related records, the most often way that we go ahead and display this information is with a portal. And if we jump over to this layout that I have behind me, what we have over here is a portal. However, portals have certain limitations, and so you should avoid using them on print layouts unless two things are typically true. Number one, and this one you just really cannot get around, the information in the rows needs to be of a consistent size. And I'll show you exactly what I mean by that. Okay, I'm going to come over here to our Angular clamp that we were working with, and I'm going to click into the product description, and I'm just going to add a return, and I'm going to add some information. Extra info. This should be a yellow clamp. Customer had issue with last one. Now, some of you might be going, that's a bit ridiculous to put all that in there. Well, actually just spent a couple hours earlier this year for a customer who needs to have literal notes attached to every line item. And those notes could be one sentence, they might not exist, or they could be in a giant paragraph of information. And let's print this really quickly and see what it looks like. Now, I don't think it's this layout at the moment, but I'm just going to change it real quick. One of the cool things with Starting Point out of the box is you actually have multiple print layouts for things like invoices. So let's go ahead and print this. And again, we're just going to go ahead and preview it. And you'll see that there's the Angular clamp. And if you look close, you can almost see that it's trying to display that extra info, but it just doesn't come across. And we're going to get into in a minute how you solve that issue. But that is a limitation with portals that you're just not going to get around. And the second thing is page breaks. So if we go back to our example that we have here, you'll notice that this is a one-page, I'm going to tell you right now, it's a one-page print document. One of the challenges, period, with printing is that some printed documents, like an invoice, they're going to have one line item. Other ones are going to have 5. And sometimes you might have ones that have as much as like 40 or 50, meaning that you might have 1 page, 2 page, or more. And where those page breaks fall is a real challenge for us as developers. It's a constantly moving target. But when you're dealing with portals and you try to deal with the page break, that constantly moving target becomes even more difficult to deal with. And so our advice would be, if you need variable size height in rows, and if you need to break across a page break, just don't do portals. Now, Richard will tell you that he likes to use portals for printing during streams because it's really easy to rapidly develop one and just kind of show you what's going on there. And for a lot of our basic layouts in Starting Points, that's what they use. Also, for those of you who are new to FileMaker, the relationships is probably one of the most difficult parts of learning how to develop. And so portals are actually easier when you're new than the other technique that we're going to show on how you print these. So I'm going to take this layout here for a moment, and I'm going to slide it off to the right, and I'm going to go to this other invoice that we have here, and I'm going to click print, and we're just going to see what it looks like, and then we're going to talk about what actually happened. So I'm going to click print, I'm going to go open and preview, and perfect. I was hoping that that would go to 2 pages. Now, ignore the fact that I didn't actually fill any personal information out on this. So we've got our page 1 right here. And again, you can ignore the fact that I don't have any personal info on there. But then we have this page break that takes us onto a second page. And one of the things I want to highlight here that's nice is you got your header right here. With the portals, we lose that. And so it cleanly goes across. Now, if you only have one line item on the other side, again, this is a constantly moving target that is difficult, but the list view is going to give us more options than a portal is. And I kind of jumped the gun there a little bit. How do we solve this if we're not using portal? So I'm going to go ahead and open up a different layout, and we're going to talk about that layout. And Richard, I see that you're back.
Let me just comment on this because I was writing about this. If you're a beginning developer, focusing on a one-page printout, basically having the portal on the layout is what you need to do as a legitimate beginner. If you're an intermediate developer, you've been doing this for a while, but if this 30 hours is your first exposure to FileMaker, along the way, I'm going to give you tips that are more beginner tips versus intermediate tips. Just work on building a great-looking one-page print job, if that makes sense, and printing the portal is fine. Portals become problems when you break across pages. And so you really want to limit it to one page. This other technique is doable. It's nicer, but it's slightly more, and it's a little bit hard to mentally process, if that makes sense, this idea.
I mentioned to them that yes, for people who are new, relationships are difficult, and so the portal one is going to be easier, and it might still feel like a challenge, while this other method is more difficult if you're new because of how it behaves.
Yeah, if you click on go to layout, so this is FM starting point 2020. Click on the layout list over here on the left. If just hold here for a second, so the data entry screens will be on either one of the 800 layouts. 800C is what we're using right there. The one, if you're a beginning developer, you want to go down and look at 807's down there. The one that's a single page, 809, the basic, the single page. I think those are by far the easiest ones to mentally kind of process.
This is the one that I was just showing everybody with the portal that we did the test on.
The multi-page capability is just the reason I always hated putting it in starting point, because it's that extra level of, it's a whole one extra level of difficulty. And I know some of you are going to be confused by that. If you want to spend time on it, let me know. We will go back and spend some time on it because it's worthwhile. Go through the script on how this works.
Well, and I mean, I'm looking at script 1251. Maybe what would be easier is if I just wrote them a script really quickly that showed them how to print this single page.
Why don't we do that? Why don't we do that? Why don't we do that? Yeah. So it's not
so
much. Well, why don't you write the one that prints it, but then do the one that does the PDF export, right? Which is kind of
that's where I mentioned too. I actually just write one script for these personally, so I'll show them. I can show you guys that. So here is the script for 1251. I'm going to try for the print button. And there's a lot going on in here. And it has mostly to do with the fact that we give you 3 print options. If you guys didn't see me do that earlier and you're new to starting point, in preferences, under invoices, you have a choice of those 3 different ones. So if you are new to starting point, try coming in here and toggling them and printing them and see what you think. I'll tell you that for most of my customers, I actually recommend the basic and minimalist. There's good use for modern, but good place to start with those. And so that script takes into account all of those choices, and then whether it's one page or many pages. But let's just go for the basic route here for a moment. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm just going to make a new script. So step 1, freeze window.
Okay,
we'll skip some of the.
So line 1 is a comment. It doesn't do anything. It's got the hashtag or pound sign or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, doesn't do
anything.
anything.
And then we're also going to do. So we're going to say, hey, so we want to freeze our window. And now what we want to do is we want to go somewhere. And when you're doing a portal, what's nice, not good to field, you just have to go to the layout that you want. So it'd be nice if I know the layout at the top of my head. And we'll walk through the script as well. Perfect. Thank you, thank you. So we go to this layout, and then we want to print. And we're going to do the save as PDF in just a moment, so not worry. And then we go back. It's pretty simple. So we go there. We print it, we go back. Now, I'm leaving dialogue on because I want to be able to preview this as a document. But if you turn this off, the OS will not ask them after hitting print, are you sure you want to print? Now, if you're the end business owner, you're going to know which one you like. If you're a developer, I suggest talking to your clients. About half of my clients like this on, and half of my clients like them off. And we can discuss that. So I'm going to leave it on right now, but this is where you get those print options that Richard had mentioned at the beginning of the stream. Are we just printing the record that we're on with the portal, or are we printing many different records? So that's the 2 choices. I've actually never used the blank record choice.
Yeah, in this case, we'd be printing the current record, right? Because we're printing one record.
Correct. I think that's what I had selected.
No, you didn't set it. Go ahead and set it. Current record.
Oh, thank you. I did. I overlooked that.
So what happens is that you do a print job. This is what happens to developers. You do a print job, and then you watch the counter going, printing page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And you're like, what the hell did I tell it to do? And then you realize you told to print the found set. And if you have 1 million records, it's going to print 1 million pages, and your printer is going to explode and get a fire extinguisher, right? So
we're going to come over here. We're going to do print basic, and then we're going to do the preview one right afterwards so I can show you all how simple this is. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and open our script debugger from Tools. And we're going to click print, and you're going to see this is pretty straightforward. So first we freeze the window. And the reason we freeze the window is it helps to prevent flashing and stuff on screen that confuses people. Then the next one is fairly basic. We just go to a layout that we need to because we're in the correct context. You can ignore this. This layout has some stuff that it does when you go there. Okay, so now we're on the layout we want with the same portal. So same context, same record, different way of displaying that information. And we're going to do the print dialog on. And I need to select current record because I can't change it over there. We'll ignore why. And then we're going to do open and preview. And so that's what would come out of our printer right there. We're going to close that, come back to FileMaker, and it's going to take us back to the original layout, which has some stuff. So now we're going to do this without the script debugger. Just see it again one more time. Print. Let me see what it looks like. Oh, that's beautiful. And you can't even tell that we went somewhere and came back.
Yeah,
really
that's
basic.
the whole point of the script. It's really good.
Now that I've got my header here, I'm actually going to take advantage of it. So I'll go up here and I go, this is for printing and previewing. It's really important to put comments into your scripts because, you know, this might be a basic one, but when you come back later, it's really nice to see these. In fact, one of the things you might notice too on my line two is parameters here. So I'm actually going to put a parameter in here. And what this tells Christian is if he comes back in, there's an optional parameter called preview, okay? So let's just take that script that I had down here. So we've already got the freeze window in our comments, so I'm just going to delete it. And then I'm going to take these options and just drag them right up there. So now we have the same script that we did before. We just have some of my fancy headers so that it looks really nice and consistent with other scripts that I like.
And you're also documenting dependencies, things that's dependent upon, right? So if the script required certain things to be happening, or it only worked on FileMaker Go, only worked on Windows or something, you could comment all that within here, right? So
exactly. You put, and then I'll even come in. So the other thing, I like that I have this auto date thing now, because dates have turned, I used to not put these in here. It would put the date spot, but I wouldn't write it. But I'll tell you, it's really nice when you have to come edit a script later and you have some context on when you added the script. Was it 6 months ago or 4 years ago? Because it can tell you contextually, like, when did I put this in there? And I'll add something I call a changelog now. And so I'll actually come in here and I'll put a date that we cleaned up or, you know, edited this script on this day, whatever it might be. It's easy not to comment your scripts, but I'll tell you, future versions of yourself, very much appreciated. I always tell my coaching customers, Eddie or Christian or Jason in the future is going to really appreciate that we added one of these comments, especially on your complex scripts. Highly, highly recommend you document what you do. And then we're going to come down here and we're going to say, okay, so what is this preview? So I've already got a variable. Hopefully you guys are familiar with that, but we're just getting the script parameter. And the script parameter is like a secret message that we can pass the script. And I'll show you this in a moment. And what we're going to say is if that script parameter equals preview, but I do have to spell this part correctly, we're going to do something else. We're going to do something else. Okay. So we've already got our print right here. And you can make this 2 scripts. It doesn't need to be 1. But I want to show you when someone says to me they need a print script or a preview, I almost always just immediately make the 2 together. So we're going to do save as PDF. There it is. So the only difference between our PDF script and our print script is really that we save versus a print. So now let's look at the commands on this, which are very similar to printing. We want to specify the options. Do we want records being browsed or current record?
Current record.
Yeah. Now, if you do save records as PDF, there is a little nuance here. If you leave the dialog on, you can leave it as it is. But if you turn the dialog off, you do have to tell it where to save the file. Now we just need to add this part right here. So we need to tell this where to go. So I'm going to do a set variable. I usually call these variables path. And we're going to do get. Do you want me to do the whole thing? I usually just do get temporary path.
That's fine. Get temporary path.
Okay. And then invoice. So I'm going to write this and then I'm going to stop and explain what I just did. So getting the temporary path is a special folder on your computer, Mac or Windows or even iOS, that you can put stuff into. And when you close FileMaker down, it just deletes everything in there. So it's a secret folder on your computer or your device that you can temporarily save stuff to.
Why don't we save it to the desktop though instead?
We're going to go here. So FileMaker gives you a couple quick places to get password because writing a computer path can be tricky. So we can also do desktop path. You can even do documents path, but then you actually have to name the document itself. So we're doing something generic today, and you can make this much more dynamic. We're going to do invoice.pdf. So we're going to save it to the document or the desktop path. the desktop on my computer. We're going to save it as invoice PDF. So we say OK. And now down here, we're going to do the dialog off. I'm going to click on our gear wheel. I'm going to specify the output file as $path. And you have a couple options down here. And I'll show you one that I actually use a lot with my clients. It's the automatically open file. Depending on what you need is, you may or may not like this. For today, I'm actually going to turn it on. So I want everyone just to quickly see what I'm saving. Okay. So I'm going to say, OK. I'm going to save this script. I'm going to move it out of the way. And I'm going to come over here. And I'm just going to move everything on the bar here over just a little bit so I can make some room. And we're going to take my print button. I'm holding the Option key right now, and I'm dragging it over to make a duplicate. Okay, and we're going to click on it, and we're going to call it Preview. And we're going to change that icon to something that looks more like a preview. There we go. And in our optional script parameter, so this is that secret message that we send to the script. We put the word preview, got to spell it correctly, or at least consistently with what you put in the script. If you spell it wrong, just make sure you spell it wrong in both places. We're going to click preview, and there we go. And it's the exact same steps that you guys saw before. We go there, we save it, we go back to where we were, and we are done with that. So that is the most basic kind of print script that you're going to have, is just go somewhere, print it, and go back. Your choice in the dialog. Remember to set the options. And then if you save as a PDF, you just need to make sure that you tell it where to put it. I'm hiding my desktop icons right now, but if I were to actually go ahead and let me just move that, show them again.
Why don't you go and show them? There we go.
And it should be somewhere. There it is. So there's the invoice PDF that we saved to the desktop. So one of my clients, this is one of his main business practices. He has a button in his database that he pushes, and it saves things to his desktop. It's one of the only things he uses uses his database for.
The financial department at RCC outputs, either they can send it directly to an email, or we output it to desktop for review. So we use that a lot.
In this example, I just named my script generically to go quickly, but I will tell you all, I very, very much like having numbers behind my script, because it's really easy to remember 1251 versus sometimes like print preview basic of what. And then if you have to get 4 words into it, it's much easier to make a mistake or forget something. And the exact same thing applies to the layouts. I very much like the naming convention that RCC uses on our products.
So this is the U.S. government 1044, right? This is the basic form that everyone does for personal income tax to the United States federal government. A lot of you aren't here. You're in a different country. I'm assuming that your government has its own form. It doesn't really matter. The point of this form is that if I double click it, once again, I'm not going to get too much into the weeds about this form other than to simply say that what happens is people come to me, and it came up earlier today. And it was what David was talking, I think, was talking about forms. And the issue is that people come to me and say, hey, I have this business. I'm going to be a tax person, and I want to print this. I want to fill out this form automatically. So at the end of the day, you really have 3 different variations of doing this. We talk about this in my book. There's a book that we wrote on the FileMaker for novices called FileMaker Book for Novices. But we cover this. And the issue is that some organizations put together a form. You're building a FileMaker file that will fill out the data on the form. So once again, absolutely simple applies to today. If you have a screen where you fill out the information, but then you want to print, you're not going to print that screen. You're going to have a printer layout. So on the printer layout, you can go one of a couple different ways. In the old days, you would have these pieces of paper that would be pre-printed, maybe on a dot matrix printer with the, and it rolls it up and you have to tear the sides off. A lot of you not even old enough to know what a dot matrix printer is. Margaret, I don't think, has ever seen one. Or you could get the 1040 form pre-printed on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, A4 if you're in Europe or whatever. And so it's in the printer already. And what you do is you line it up in FileMaker. So all you have to drop these fields on there. You print it, and if you see and you print it up and you look at it, if it comes out and it's lined up, or I got to move it a little bit left and move it up, and this one's over here. So you have to line everything up. The other way of doing that is basically taking the document and dropping into a FileMaker file. So if I go into FileMaker right here, I'm going to create a blank new file. So you're going to have one layout, which will be your data, this is your data entry layout right here. So if I go to layout mode, these would be the fields that are already in here. Once again, L and the lobsters influence is still here. This is your print layout. Then you'd go to layout, you'd say new layout, computer layout. I'll call it printer, and I'll just call it a form. Say great, and then I'm on the new layout. So I have a data entry layout right here. We'd rename it data entry. This is the printer layout. So you'd write a script that you'd be here. You're going to come here and print. You're going to come back. What you can do if you want, and once again, this depends upon the strategy and also the government agency, if they allow for this, you can take the form and drop it on the page. And what you end up in a situation is where you're going to actually print their form out. So this is your form. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this a little bit. And what you would end up doing is you would have a field in FileMaker. So you had a field over here, right? I have a field like this one, and you drag the field on there and you get rid of the label. You're going to put that over here. You'd make the field, you'd come over here, you're going to make the field transparent, right? As best you can. So you go over here, you go to the styles, you're going to say the line on it, no line, background color, transparent, none. You want it totally invisible, right? So then you'd line it up, you'd make it a little smaller, and you see if you can get it to fit in there, right? See how that's fitting? And then you're going to print that. So either you do it with the form in the background, or you don't do it with the form in the background and it's already on the printer. But if you do it this way, you can also output it as a PDF. So if I go browse mode, there is the data. Now there, you see the field around the outside. If I kind of zoom in here a little bit, you can see that. Oh, it was highlighted. So I got it correct. So there you go. That's kind of form production in FileMaker. It's pretty easy, right? We see how we did that? It's pretty easy. My third job ever back in 1990 as a brand new FileMaker baby puppy, and my third customer ever, I had a state of California form processing loans, and I had a FileMaker database, and it was a dot matrix printer, and I had to line everything up, and everything would be great, but once a year they would monkey with the forms or whatever, and I get a call from my customer, hey, it's out of alignment, we got a new form. And of course they get to the end of the year and they have to throw away all the old ones, recycle, right, bring in the new forms, and I'd go in there and you'd print out, and you'd have a bunch of stuff that would look like this, right? You go to browse mode, and it'd be, it's misaligned, you got to move it up, move it left, move it right. FileMaker is super powerful. It can do anything you want, including dealing with forms. This is a little old school, but that's how things still work. A lot of paper forms are still submitted, especially government agencies, which I think are historically backwards, right? We've covered a lot on printing, but the idea is to instill upon you a couple main concepts in summary. One, screen print jobs. Then you have the output for the PDF or for the printer, okay? Write a script. Scripts are plain English. FileMaker, go to this layout, print it, come back to the original layout. Simple. If you want to output to a PDF and save it to on your desktop, we gave you the code for that in the script, okay? Part of our demos are blank files. Part of the demos are FM starting point. Someone said, hey, how do I get FM starting point? Funny that you ask. I'm going to press the button right here. I'm going to pop into a browser. If you go to fmstartingpoint.com, you press this right here. Fill out just that top piece. Make sure you check the box that says you are human and you are allowing us to email you. And we are going to email you, which means we have to have your email, which means we kind of loosely know your email address. Fill that out. You'll get an email with all the links in it. There's different versions. We had a different live stream. It was one of the earlier live streams from this 30-day. We talked about the various versions of Starting Point. Pick the one you like. They look a little different, but their functionality is all very, very, very similar. So pick the one that speaks to you, that is your design aesthetic, that you feel is fashion forward and makes you look on trend.
Ricardo would like to know what the difference between estimates and invoices is.
Right, you're talking about the business question. An estimate is where someone wants to know how much something's going to cost, and you get them a printout of what it's likely to cost, a quote or an estimate. And then when they normally say, hey, we're going to buy that, you give them an invoice that they pay, right? And business. And FM starting point, they're very, very similar. I don't think we put the tax onto the estimate. I don't know that we put taxes on there. You could. Once again, they're unlocked and they're totally customizable. But a lot of people will take an estimate and then they can press a button and it transfers it into an invoice. It creates the invoice automatically from that, I think. This is FM starting point 1.0 from 2008. So we built the button in here that we can duplicate the estimate, and then we built a button and move to invoices, right? So there it is. We even had it here in 2008. Takes the estimate, it basically replicates it all into invoice. This is a very, very old. This was the design of the world, especially in the world of FileMaker in 2006, 7, 8, and 9, 10. So we're talking a solid 12, 13, 14 years ago. The modern one, you saw the one Christian's working with, is a modern. At the end of the day, customer relationship management hasn't changed that much. You track what you talked to them about. You track any quotes you have for them. You track any invoices you have for them. You track any promises that you made. So you remember your promises. You track the projects or the jobs, and then you customize it. All right. Well, that's it for today. Everyone, we'll catch you tomorrow. Make sure you check out our website, support the channel. Go to the fmtrain.tv, find a bundle. If you really want some sort of special bundle that you want your way, your hamburger your way, send us an email to support@RC Consulting. If you have a question, comment, topic